on Ctcl in liberal arts. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Annabelle. Well, we are excited to be here this morning. Christine and I will be here. Christine's going to be a little bit more behind the scenes, but she can feel free to jump in at any point. Do you want to introduce yourself, Christine?
Good morning. My name is Christine Bowman, and I am the Dean of Enrollment Services at Southwestern University. I also have the great privilege and honor of serving as the chair of the Ctcl Board of Directors. And as Kathy alluded to, I will be the behind-the-scenes Q&A answer contact this morning. So throughout her presentation, please feel free to throw questions out. I will answer some on the spot, and we'll save some for the end for everyone to hear. Have a great morning.
Great, thanks, Christine. Well, I am Kathy Finks. I am one of the Ctcl Board Emeritus now, as of a couple days ago. I'm also the Senior Associate Director of Admissions and Director of Campus Relations at the College of Worcester, which is one of our Ctcl schools. And so I thought I would start off, excuse me, by just talking a little bit about what is Ctcl? You know, why are we here? What is this collection? And so for us, it's really that, you know, College That Changed Lives is an organization that's dedicated to the advancement and support and student-centered, which you might want to keep that word in mind, student-centered college admissions search process. We are here to support each student in finding and developing those lifelong learning skills that provide the foundation for success. And so one of the things that, you know, when you're looking at Ctcl, why does that matter, right? So one of the things that we're hoping to do as an organization and why we've come together is really some of those bubbles at the bottom, right? So it's about demystifying the search. It's about getting rid of that media frenzy, about de-stressing, about really talking about the liberal arts benefits, which I'm going to spend some time this morning doing. It's about supporting our member schools. You know, I think sometimes you think from your perspective, this whole college search process is so stressful and so competitive, but we really are collaborators and partners, and we really are, as colleges, even though we have different institutions, different goals, different presidents, we're really about that learning, that lifelong skill set, and we collaborate, we share resources and best practices as we go along. So it is about supporting those members. And it's looking beyond the rankings, and we're going to spend a little bit of time this morning talking about that. So as I alluded to, it's a collection of schools. Actually, there's 44 of us that are in the College That Changed Lives organization. 42 of us are private, 2 public universities. We represent 25 states from across the country. The average enrollment is about 1520. So it gets, you know, we're getting at that small liberal arts, and we'll talk more about what that advantage is. Here's a list of the schools, although I encourage all of you to go out to ctcl.org. And really take a look at each school. You can dig in, there's a search bar, etc. You can see my little schools at the very bottom of this list. But more than just a kind of listing of names, you know, these schools all showcase, you know, really different avenues at getting at the same thing, right? At getting at college graduation and getting at those skill sets. And so when you're looking at this list, you know, we have Hampshire, an evergreen that allows students to really create their own majors and their own career path. We have Cornell that does one college typically at a time. We have Hampshire that offers these tech and tracks. We have Goucher and I think a couple others that require all students to do a study abroad. There's some schools that require all students to do some form of an internship or a senior project like Worcester and Reed and Allegheny. We have an all-women's college, Agnes Scott. We have an all-male college in Wabash. We have Division I, Division II, Division III schools. And so it's this, you know, we're all, as an organization, we have many different unique aspects. And so I think it provides a lot of opportunity as you're going through this week and hopefully looking at some of those sessions to see how we differ and see how you as a learner might relate better to some of these schools. But okay, so we are here today because I would imagine if you're on this call, right, you're either a student who's starting your own search, or you're a counselor who's coming to learn more about us, perhaps, or you're a parent, who's here, but you're all here because in some way you're starting that search. And so, maybe it's someone who told you, hey, you should come out on a Sunday morning and check out Ctcl, and we're grateful for that person. But you're looking for that match, right? And you're starting to think about what's going to be in this college search. How do you pull these things together? So what is it maybe in a brand name? What are the things that you want versus need? What's the worth of college? What does it cost? What are liberal arts schools? Are they all liberal? Small versus big? Do I have to have my major now? So up front, there is a lot of questions that you may be having. And so how do you start? And that's what that media frenzy, I'll be honest with you, that's what they try and capitalize on, right? Is that kind of growing list of unknowns, and finding your voice is going to be really important, and finding out what's going to benefit you from each of those schools. And so one of the first ways that sometimes students do that is they want a list, right? Give me a list of schools I should apply to. Give me a list of things that might be important. And so I want to take a little bit of time and just talk through that. One of the rankings often kind of drive the search, and I think that all tools at your disposal can be useful. But I do want to talk a little bit about what goes into those rankings, and just so that you have the context and so you can figure out, does this really matter for you? We live in a culture that is so geared around Yelp and Amazon, Rotten Tomatoes, and your Uber driver. We kind of go out and rank everything. We put our reviews in everything, and sometimes you don't stop to think, well, what goes into that review? Who's doing it? Is it authentic? How is it made up? And then what impact does that actually have on me when I'm trying to find? So anyways, US News and World Report is big in the ranking games and big in the world. But I thought I would give you just a few of the factors that go into determining how they rank. And so you can see up here, it's peer assessment, it's faculty resources, it's student excellence. So that means, grades and caliber, financial resources of the overall college, graduation rate performance, alumni giving is a part of that as well. I don't know if that's a big factor for you or not. Graduation and retention rates, and social mobility. And so again, as you're going through, I think that some of these rankings can be a tool, but I wanted to just start off by talking a little bit about what goes into it. And so you can see, you can start to kind of demystify it for yourself and really figure out, is this a tool I want to use, or is there something else? So another tool that I think could be helpful is really looking at the Gallup-Purdue Index, the GPI. It's a report, that 30,000 college graduates from across the country took part in, and they were looking at those that had bachelor's and higher degree, and they're really trying to make an assessment of those alumni perceptions on how their undergraduate experience really helped get them to where they are now in their well-being and their quality of life. So basically looking at, let me move over here, sorry, is this college really worth it, right? And one of the things that they were looking at was some of these factors. So, and we just looked at some of the factors that were in the US News report. These are some of the other factors that they looked at for well-being in this survey. So really the purpose of well-being, the social well-being, the financial well-being, of course, how it impacted your economic life and reduced stress in that way. But also things like community well-being, your sense of engagement in areas where you're living and working, feeling safe, providing a good community, your physical well-being, having good health, having enough energy to do things on a daily basis. And so this just gives you an idea of some of the other factors that could, that you could look at when trying to assess how colleges are performing and doing. And so what did this survey find, and why am I spending time talking about it? It found that the type of school an alumni went to, whether it's public or private, small, large, very selective, or less selective, was far less likely to be related to the quality of life of the alumni's current life after graduation than the specific experiences they had at in college. Let me repeat just the last part. So basically what they're saying is that what you did in college, how you performed, who you connected to, had far more impact than just the name brand of the school or how selective or how competitive it was to get in there. That had less bearing on the health and the wealth and the well-being of their graduates. And so when they looked to dig even a little deeper, because this will then fold into why we're here, what we're talking about with liberal arts schools, is that they found that the strongest agreement with the benefits were these. Did my professor know my name? Did they care about me? Did I get a chance to do a mentored research project where I pursued goals and dreams? Did I have one professor that excited me in my learning? You know, maybe got me out of my classroom, went to a marsh, went to, you know, Lake Erie, went to a desert in Arizona, took me to a conference. Did I get a chance to work on a project for a semester and complete? I already mentioned a few schools that really take that to fruition and really play that up. Was I able to be a part of extracurriculars in a meaningful way? So not just attend something, but really take part in. It could be a whole host of things. It could have been Model UN. It could have been being a leader in a cappella. It could have been being in theater. It could have been varsity athletics. It could have been student government. But were you able at that school, did it allow for students to really join in that community and make that community their own? Or was it just a select few that had the opportunity? Same thing with internships. Was that a big part of the curriculum? Could you get a paid internship? Was the Career Center there basically in support of you with those professors? And then, like I mentioned, kind of the leadership in these extracurriculars. And so, I think that when we're looking at liberal arts schools, those are some of the questions we're going to get to in a second, is how can you identify those? And how can you maybe pose questions related to that? So real quick, before we get to that, here's another way. If you look at the National Survey of Student Engagement, NSSE, as some of us call it, it might be another way that you can look. There's the College Student Report that you can go out. There's hundreds of four-year universities and colleges that put out their data about first year and student senior participation. And you can look to see how undergraduates spent their time and how they gained from that attending university. And so the NSSE also looks at some kind of ways to look at empirical best practices. And so one of the things that this study is looking at, going again behind those rankings, going behind what they're looking for, is that engagement factor. You know, were you academically challenged? Are you learning from your peers? Especially at small schools, right? So if you're learning from your professor, but you're also going to be learning from those peers. How diverse was it? Were the classrooms socioeconomically diverse? Were they ethnically diverse? Were they religiously diverse? Could you learn from your peers along the way? What experience did they have with faculty? The campus environment itself, the quality, the how supportive they were. And then they looked for 6 high impact practices or key areas that they found to be critical. And they determined that if you look at service learning, learning within the community, research with faculty, internships, study abroad, culminating senior experience, I think you're hearing some trends, right? You're hearing some things that tend to be really important for later on success. These are 2 ways that you can kind of look and kind of gauge some other aspects that might be things that might be important for your search. And so, again, what are some ways then that you could take this knowledge or take what they're learning from their studies and then apply it to your search? So do professors care about individual students? Is mentoring a value in your tenure track? You know, could you go out and ask about student mentoring? What does that mean? Could you ask about how excited are the student or the faculty to teach? You know, are students engaged on campus? You know, you can go out and you can really learn more if you ask some detailed questions. And so kind of going behind those rankings and looking to see how important those are to those institutions, looking at student success. You yourself can turn it around then and really look to see how can I make this as part of my college search. And so when we go forward then and look at Ctcl, I think some other things that you can look at for outcomes and why they might be important is looking at the number of Fulbright scholars, looking at the number of Watson fellowships, Gilman scholars, Peace Corps volunteers. And so those are phenomenal outcomes when you're looking at where our member colleges, where they fall, and how that might be of value to you when you're looking. And if you're not familiar, you know, Fulbright is a scholarship program where they're offering research and study and teaching opportunities in over 140 countries for recent graduates. It's a highly selective program, and to have, you know, 26 members, institutions cited as the top in that in 2019, that's really saying a lot about where our students are going from those practices that we're looking in those other surveys. Or Watson scholars, again, very competitive. It's a one-year grant where they have to do a purposeful independent exploration here in the US. Gilman scholars, same thing, highly selective, a program that enables students with limited financial means to study abroad or gain internships, and thereby kind of really gaining on those critical skills, etc. And so when you look at Ctcl member schools and you look at kind of where we fall in terms of accessibility, you know, we aren't one of those we aren't as a collective group one of those organizations that's really trying to keep our students out. We're actually trying to be inclusive. You know, our average acceptance rate is about 65 for our member colleges. And so it's a place where we're hoping that you're doing that student-centered search so that you're looking just as much as the factors that are important to you. And then we're going to go back and look and see how you can make those meaningful for us at a college. So I want to turn just a little bit. You know, I talked about the liberal arts and the media sometimes portraying, you know, what are the liberal arts? If you're not familiar, sometimes you know, the only thing that you have in your family in terms of educational history might be just going to the local state school. And that's what you've known and that's what you've seen. But the liberal arts can be a huge benefit. And I think that as you talk through what a liberal arts school is and their curriculum and how they try and mesh things from different disciplines together and really show you that there is more connectivity between majors than there are differences between majors. You can really get a feel for how tangible it is and how meaningful it can be to be at one of these schools. You know, our goal is really to prepare you for your future. It is to get you out there into the field. And we provide a broad base of education. And along the way, we're all looking for some of these main skill sets. And this is what we put into our curriculum. This is what we put into our teaching. This is what we put into our classrooms. And it's creative thinking. It's collaborative work. It's hands-on work. It's working, like I said, in between those disciplines. It's gaining leadership skills. It's gaining communication skills, whether it's in person because you're in small classes or actually presenting or doing a body of research where you're doing written communication and taking that knowledge and putting it in. It's looking at data analysis across the board. It's important, not just for those STEM majors. And I think the most important thing that liberal arts schools try to provide is a complex learning how to solve problems or problem solving skills. So when you're out in the real world, it's not just the, here's a question, answer it anymore, but it's actually learning what are the questions I should be asking and how can I go learn that? And that is one of the fundamental differences, I think, between liberal arts educations, how they approach our challenge of educating students for 4 years and moving them on to careers. And when you think about moving on to careers, right, you're thinking about what skill sets employers are looking for, what are they endorsing? And I know this is pretty text heavy and there's some slide information on here that's a little hard to see, so I'll try and read that for you. But basically, they're talking about all of the things. If we go back to what was that survey looking at that they found was critically important for success after graduation, what are liberal arts schools trying to endorse? This is what employers, when we're looking at, surveys, when we're looking at the American colleges and universities survey about what employers were looking for, it's all of those things. It's the critical thinking skills, analysis, the problem solving, the written communication, the oral communication, the innovative, the creative, and all of these things are what they found to be most critical. In fact, if I can go back for a little bit, I wish I had it in front of me, but Bill Gates, when he was talking about liberal arts and is there value in liberal arts anymore as we're moving more into the tech field, and he actually said that more than ever, these skill sets, what we're talking about here on this slide, are more critically important than ever because we need a generation of students, of learners, of employers that can follow these skills. And I'm sorry that I don't have that quote right in front of me, but we're talking about those higher ability skills. And so again, I know this one slide might be a little hard to see, but these are the ones that when there's how they're assessing, same thing: teamwork, collaboration, critical skills, communication, really looking at how you're performing and how do you gain those skills. And I want to take a moment and just say, I think some of this, if you're just new to the college search, it might sound like, well, yeah, of course, and all colleges do this. Well, actually, I want to tell you that this is not what all colleges do. They don't all approach education in this way. They don't all have that component of hands-on learning, that interactiveness with their faculty, the ability to teach students how to learn, how to create, how to move that knowledge forward. It's actually becoming rarer and rarer. And that's what we love about our collection of schools, is that this is really our mandate. It's our mantra. It's what we're doing. And so for you, when you're out on those college search tours, whether it's virtual or in person, asking those questions, asking questions that get around these types of things, because I know you'll want to get jobs, or if there's parents on here, I know you want your students to all get jobs. These are the things that are critically important. Which leads into long-term investment, right? I think that the other thing that sometimes we get a general stereotype about is that that we're expensive, and why that may be initially true if you just look at sticker price. There's a lot that goes behind that, and we really are institutions. I talked about how we're not trying to be exclusive; we're trying to be inclusive. We're schools that are really looking for that value and providing that value. And we'll talk about that in a second in terms of financial aid, et cetera. And so along with that, what does that mean if I'm going to bat these schools? Is the value going to be there? And as you can look on here at this slide, when you look at return on investments of liberal arts colleges, that they're nearly $200,000 higher than the median for all other schools. And maybe more important than that is looking at the 40-year median return on investments with liberal arts schools, and that those with 4-year and engineering related degrees, you can see how close those two are, and that liberal arts schools do really keep up and really outpace a lot of the return on investment for our students. And so to go back then about how to afford it, again, you're looking at that long-term investment, what we just talked about, that long-term return on investment over the course of a lifetime. And so it's going to be an investment in the college as well. And so when you're looking at these, don't be so quick to dismiss it. Cost is definitely, as you're doing that student-centered, I'm not sure how many times I've said that today, but doing that student-centered search, you really want to look at all of the pieces. And so affordability is going to be one of those pieces as well. And so looking at what is each of these member schools, what do they offer? Do they take the FAFSA? Are they doing the CSS profile as well? Do they have their own institutional aid? For international students who are on this call, do they offer international student aid? In fact, many, if not all of our colleges are offering international student aid. And each of them is different. You can also look for outside scholarships. Start early, right? And look broadly, because you want to make sure that you're covering all those bases and kind of incorporating all of those pieces that you can. If you end up applying and getting admitted to one of the CTCL schools, we actually offer a CTCL scholarship process as well. And so at the end of this process, closer to second semester, you can look for those opportunities, which would be great. When we're talking about aid, we're really talking about two different types, right? So gift aid, merit scholarships, talent-based grants, and then that self-help, the loan, the work study. There are 44 schools, as I mentioned up front, and there are 44 different policies for all this. So deadline really does matter. But really, we're here, and I bring these slides forward just to say that we are here to help you understand that process and help you look for the affordability piece. Okay, so I have talked a lot about heavy slides, a lot of material, and I wanted to bring it back a little bit to a breathe, a sigh, some pictures up on the screen, because it also comes back to really finding that community, to really finding those people you connect to making that college your home, and really looking for those next steps. And that's what we're hoping that you really take part in over the next few days with these schools. Now that you've learned a little bit more about looking beyond just the rankings, looking at what goes into a ranking, looking at some other factors you can contribute or could not contribute, you could look for that could contribute to your overall investment, looking at how liberal arts schools approach an education, the skill sets that they're hoping to build in you. Those are all opportunities for you to go out and ask some of those questions that we put up on the screen earlier, to really dig deeper. Yes, you can ask if you can bring a car, and yes, you can ask if your pet rabbit can come, and how good is the food, but really diving into the things that are important to you, that student-centered search process. Am I going to be able to know my faculty? Are they going to know me? How am I going to see them outside of the classroom? When am I going to see them? Who's going to be in my classrooms with me? What's that learning process going to look like? Can I do a study abroad? Can I get an internship? Is it only a select few? Is it more across the grain? Is it part of the process? All of those types of questions is what we're really hoping that you start to incorporate in. And when you're looking beyond kind of just the superficial bubble, that you're taking those things into account. So can we breathe a little bit? Maybe, hopefully, I hope so. The other big elephant I think that is in the room is that COVID will affect your search. We know this, and I want to just talk a little bit about maybe putting you at ease there. Yes, there are 44 of us, and yes, we all have different policies, but keep in mind, we really are all in this college search process together this year. It's going to look different for all of us, right? And colleges have really been working hard to figure out, especially CTCL schools, how can we be relatable? One of the things we love to do is to see you in person and really have you get to know us and us get to know you. And so we've all been doing virtual, which is why you're here today, right? We've been adapting things. We would have normally been on the road touring different cities across the US. But I think one of the great things, and the thing that you can take as your advantage is that now all this content is online. You don't have to take a bus across town or across the state line to come see us at College Fair this week. You can really see us from anywhere. And so look to see what virtual options, which are, I have to say, are just endless, and they keep popping up and changing. So go back to the schools and look. You know, there's online classes that you're able to either sit in or do a master class at schools. There's information sessions that are virtual. There's tours. Some actually have live tours that are going around campus. There's interview slots, even alumni interview or staff interviews. And so there's college fairs, there's high school visits. There's actually, I just did a regional Q&A event, for my Mid-Atlantic area on Thursday night. So there's even receptions that are virtual now. And so, you know, take full advantage of that and ask questions on those sessions. Get to know people virtually, because we're really trying to make that content work. I think the other thing that we're aware of is that your transcripts are going to look different. We understand that. We know that there could have been some really deep divides that you had within a school system last year that disrupted things beyond just COVID, but how your school system handled it, or how you had family responsibilities around what was happening with COVID. We know that some students will have pass-fail grades, and again, a collective sigh of relief. We understand that. We're going to look for that. But I also think that it's your opportunity to really take advantage and tell us how you overcame that, what you did to put yourself in a better position maybe this semester than you were last year. Maybe it's in an interview. Maybe it's just adding to your application. I think, I might have this wrong, Christine can correct me, but I think we're up to 43 of our member colleges that we are now test score optional or test score blind. And so
that is correct, Kathy.
Yay. And so we know that many of you struggled to take standardized tests, or you took them, but you were young as a sophomore and you don't want to, send those scores in. I'm here to tell you, with Ctcl schools, that's okay. We really want to look more deeper into your transcript, your curriculum. Maybe it's your writing, maybe it's project work, maybe it's portfolios. And so we're each going to have different nuances of how we do that, but we're each taking a look beyond those test scores. Some schools you can still submit test scores if you took the time to take them and you feel proud of them. That might be okay at some of these Ctcl schools. But the big message is, again, COVID related, we know things happened. And we are adjusting and have been, I just want to say, have been leaders on this ground. It's not something that's just come up with COVID, but we have, traditionally, once this movement started of looking beyond just test scores, we've had numerous institutions doing this. In fact, we were closer to maybe 60, 70% that were already test score optional before this happened. And so really, trying to take your stress level off with that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I guess I just want to reiterate the point that this is really your process, your search. I put up the slide at the beginning, some of the things, the bubbles that you might be thinking of as students or parents, how you're going to approach this search. I challenged you in the middle to think a little bit about what goes into an education, whether it's a liberal arts education, what are the skill sets that you want to come out with? I know it's a really hard one, right? Because you're 17, 18-year-old in high school, but how do you want to transform in 4 years? Really start to take a look at some of those things. How do I learn best? How do I want to learn best? Who do I want to learn with? So I'm really going to challenge you there. And then I'm going to challenge you with that student-centered search to take it a step further and really be your best advocate. I know that sometimes in the scheme of life, it's a cultural thing that we try and be humble. I, as a parent, teach my daughter that all the time. Be humble, be humble, be humble. But this process, your student-centered search, is about you coming out of that humble shell a little bit and really bragging about who you are, bragging about your accomplishments, taking a bad situation and turning it around, and then sharing those experiences with us. And so as you start to do all of these things, we really think that you're going to be able to take your search into your hands and really come out with an outcome that's the best match for you. And so again, this is your opportunity this week to go to some of these sessions, to ask those questions, to dive deeper, to find those nuances of colleges that change life schools and how we can be a part of that journey for you and a part of that search for you. So again, I'm Kathy Finks. My information is up here, which is less important than the other information about the College to Change Lives. You know, we have our own website that has searchability tools on there. You can find us on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And I think actually, if you go out and join Instagram, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. Instead of all the text heavy data I gave you today, you'd be able to see people and faces and actual lives on campus. And stories about what they're doing in their study abroads and in their internships, which can be really more impactful, I think, than just seeing a number on a slide. So we do hope that you'll follow us on social media as well. Now, do we have time for any questions, Christine?
Well, we certainly have time, but we don't have any questions. Whoops, I just lied. One popped up. Hold on just one moment. What is the range of how many students that are at CTCL colleges? And a nice compliment to you, Kathy. College of Worcester sounds like an excellent school, but it might be a little small. So do you have that size range of our institutions?
In terms of the number of students that are there?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, that is a great question, and I don't off the top of my head. We can find it on the CTCL website, and maybe Christine can pull it up. I know that that the range goes from under 1,000 to just about 3,000, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good speculative reflection.
Yeah, and so I want to talk about what that means to be a small school. I think sometimes whether you're a student or maybe a parent of, you went to a large state school. I went to a large state school. What does it mean? Is it going to be too small? Sometimes you might think of that in terms of, is it my community that's too small, or is it too small in the classroom? But I would challenge that as a real benefit. You're going to have people that know you. You're going to have people that know your learning style. You're going to have people that know that when you're doing well, when you're not. You're going to have people that are going to challenge you. You're going to have people that are going to be looking out for an internship for you or an opportunity to present at a college. You're going to have all of those advantages. When I'm on stage, sometimes when I'm presenting at high schools for big junior nights, they have small liberal arts schools on there, and they have large institutions on there. And a lot of times the large institutions will start talking about their honors college or, their small communities. Why do they do that? They're actually trying to be us, right? They're trying to promote that small sense of community, that sense of connectedness that all students want to feel. They're trying to promote those opportunities for those honor students to do those study abroads, to do those research. Well, I'm here to tell you that at the College at Change Life schools, that's the norm. That's just the way we operate. That's who our students are. By being accepted, when we're looking for a match for our schools and you're looking for a match, we're looking for those students who are going to do those big things. They might not always know that they are, but we can see glimpses of that in there. And we're really going to propel that forward. It's an opportunity for you to be at a quote unquote all honors institution. Again, a school that's really working to promote those best practices. And so, but that's a great question. You go out when you're talking to students on student panels or doing a virtual student tour, go out and ask that, every single person on campus, what is that like? I'm actually here to tell you that in a school of 2,000, you're not going to know every student on campus. There's always new students coming in with each new class year. You're always meeting new students in clubs and organizations. So even a high school of 2,000 looks very different from a college of 2,000 where you all live and work and play. And so, but again, go out and get that sense from the students. Where were they looking at colleges and how big were those schools? And why did they choose a small liberal arts school? How did they feel about that? How was that transition? So again, sorry, I could go on about size for a long time, but I think that's an important question. And I think that's one that you have to then answer. Any other questions?
I compliment that with saying that sometimes the visit can really help when they see our classrooms in action, when they see our students in action in their clubs or in the residence halls, and they realize that, yes, you may have gone to a really big school, sometimes going to a smaller institution allows you to shine in a different way. Sometimes you've been in a high school that has a large population, your best attributes may not have been able to be presented yet. And so a school may allow that to happen. We do have some other questions, Kathy. I'm excited. What is the admission process like with Ctcl schools, and what would you say that they're looking for overall?
I couldn't hear. The selection process was the first word.
What is the admission process like?
Admission process. Yeah, so it does vary a little bit from each school, but there are some very big general overlaps. All of us are looking at your transcript, your key component of that. So less about just the number of your GPA, but more about the work that went behind it. And that's what we're dissecting. So the kind of classes there you're taking, the kind of learner that you are. So that goes into the counselor recs and the teacher recs, perhaps. You know, what are they saying about your learning style and how you interact? That's an opportunity for you in the essay to talk about those things as well, to having those lifelong learning skills, that looking beyond just that number and getting the right grade on the test. Are you actually excited about learning? You're excited about the process. And so I digress a little bit, but that transcript is a really critical piece for all of our 44 members colleges. We all look at that a little bit different, but that is a big piece. And so again, it's looking at the kind of class you've taken, how you've done, how you've progressed. If you had a bobble freshman year or sophomore year, have you gone increased? If you've struggled a little bit, what's the message behind that? Can you account for that? Going back to taking charge of that, can you explain to us what's going on? Again, I said that 43 of our 44 members are now test score optional, so that test score piece isn't part of the admissions process for most of us anymore, or it's not in terms of merit scholarships, isn't a piece of that anymore. But we really, all of us, I can say with 100% certainty, all want to hear from you. We all want to see you, and if you can't come to campus, you can't interview, you can't get that kind of voice, then it's up to you to put it in that application, to talk about the activities that you're a part of. What's really more important to you, not just the list, but what's important to you on that list of activities. How have you shown your leadership? And it doesn't have to be a name title. I don't have to be president of this, but how have you made a commitment to that? It could be a commitment to work, to working outside of your school day. It could be a commitment to volunteering in your school, in your larger community, your faith community. And so learning who you are is going to be important, because we want you to come and be active on our campus. And that's one of the things we're going to try and assess. We don't need you all to have done the same types of activities, but we want you to be someone who wants to come and learn and grow in different and unique ways from each of you. So there's not one magic bullet or one magic phrase. I hope that helps. Christine, is there something quickly you'd like to add?
There is. Well, there's one more question that I'd like to throw out, although I see Annabelle has popped on. And I'll ask it and then answer it really quickly. Can you speak a little bit about a student who isn't sure what they want to do career-wise after college and is having trouble figuring out how to start the search? The questions you offered are helpful. I'm wondering if you have other suggestions. We also had a question about why some students would choose a liberal arts college over the other. And I think those two questions tie together nicely. The flexibility of learning about yourself and learning about your academic passions at a liberal arts college allows you to explore the unknown. Maybe you take a course in anthropology, which we don't typically offer in high school. Maybe you take a course in philosophy, which we don't typically offer in high school. The chance for you to explore and find that passion and still graduate in 4 years is a pride point for our institutions. And so I think the ability for you to understand and discover who you are in the unknown is really important. I would also support that by saying that you should visit the career services offices at our schools, because they are many times a 4-year guidance opportunity and will allow you to grow and thrive through that. I see that there are a few other questions that we're not going to get to answer, but I will be sure to answer them offline in the next week or so. And so thank you very much for your time. Annabelle, I'll turn it over to you at this point in time.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank the panelists for joining us, and everybody, all the attendees that joined us today. When you close this window, there'll be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate your feedback you can provide. And also, this was just one of the many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions throughout the week as well. In about a week, you'll be able to find the sessions recordings, as well as all the other sessions that you've attended. So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the session. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Hi, guys.